What's up, Learn Jazz Standards podcast listeners? Coming at you with a little bonus episode here today. Not going to do the whole show music thing, and it's going to be a little bit shorter episode because I want to talk a little bit about a little side project, something that I've been having a lot of fun with lately that I've started up. So a little bit of an announcement, plus just a tad bit of teaching for those of you who are interested. And want to make this a bonus episode, not a regular episode, still having the jazz tips, advice, that regularly come out every single week on the podcast, but I wanted to make this a bonus episode because I know that this particular subject may only be of interest to some of you who listen to the podcast, and maybe not quite a few of you, although you might find it interesting. So, feel free to stick around listening to this little short bonus episode. But if you're someone who makes any money at all or any of your living off of being a musician, whether that's a gigging musician, whether that's as a music teacher, you might be interested in learning a little bit more about how you can do that through what I call passive income. And so I started this new podcast, just came out, called Passive Income Musician, the Passive Income Musician podcast. Really excited about this. It's really kind of a passion project. I didn't really start it for any other reason other than, the two passions in my life are doing this Learn Jazz Standards podcast, teaching you how to become a better jazz musician, jazz tips, advice, lessons. Like, I love this music. I love helping other people learn this. And then at the same time, over the last few years, after the last several years, really, I've also gotten a passion for teaching others how to make a living teaching music to others online, as well as that's really where my career has gone to. Still do gigs, still do all that stuff, but my career really is all about teaching music online. That's how I make most of my living, and I really want to share that with other people as well. So if you are someone who is interested in that, how can I, build an online following? How can I start, helping other musicians teach, maybe expand my studio if you're someone who teaches music, or maybe you're a gigging musician and you're looking for another source of revenue. We know that it's tough, right? Musicians, we need support. We need, we need to be able to make a living doing what we're doing. And doing that online is a great way to do that. Now, it's not easy. In fact, it's quite hard to do, but that's exactly what my podcast is about. The Passive Income Musician podcast is all about, is just kind of breaking that down, trying to make things simpler, trying to help you through that process, kind of just give you the, under the hood view of how I do it, of how I run my business, and help serve my audience, you guys, Learn Jazz Standards community, help you guys, become better musicians. And so that's exactly what I teach on the Passive Income Musician podcast. So if you are interested in something like this, continue listening on. If you're totally not, if this is not relevant to you at all, don't worry. Still having the regular podcast episode coming out this week, and this podcast will be going on for a long time. But if you are interested in this sort of thing, of course, you can go check out my new podcast, the Passive Income Musician podcast. You can find that on iTunes, Stitcher, other places. We're slowly adding new places you can listen to that podcast. Or, of course, you can just go to my website, my new website, passiveincomemusician.com. So just to talk to you a little bit more about that, for those of you who are still with me, who are kind of interested in the subject, you think this could be something that would help you, let's talk about this. Let's start from the beginning here. What is passive income? Well, passive income, kind of has a little bit of a bad name to it. People maybe have heard sleazy salesmen say before, oh, passive income, it's like when you're sitting on the beach drinking martinis and, while money is just flowing into your bank account. It sounds sort of sleazy, and that's not at all what I'm talking about when I say passive income. When I talk about passive income, I'm essentially talking about how you build assets such as ebooks and courses, and many of you have bought my ebooks and courses. You build those, you put a lot of hard work up front, and you also have to build an audience, right? Like, I have to build up listeners of my podcast, people who check out my blog, people who visit my YouTube channel, and I have to, I give you guys a lot of free value. And then, I make these products that can help you even more, such as ebooks and courses. And then I don't necessarily have to be trading my time for money anymore, right? I'm not necessarily teaching private lessons, although I do a little bit of that still. I mostly am just helping people inside of my courses. Now, it's passive because I'm not having to show up there every single time for the transaction, right? I make the product and I serve it to my audience, and then I just do, behind the scenes work, such as, helping my course students inside of the course, commenting on people's assignments. But it's passive because I don't actually have to be there, right? I'm not trading my time for money anymore. I use this example in one of my podcast episodes that, my wife, she changed jobs this last year. And, kind of on a dime, it was like, hey, let's take a week of vacation just to get out and just have a little bit of a break between jobs. And that sounded like a great idea. Now, if I was in any other world where I was dependent on having enough gigs or enough students, and if I wasn't present to teach those students to, play those gigs, then that would be a huge hit to my income. Well, then I would have, it may have been a no-go, right? I couldn't do something so spontaneous like that. But since I've built a business, spent lots of years of hard work, of creating this passive income business, LearnJazzStandards.com, I was able to do that. I was able to take my computer on the road. I had pre-batch content made. I wasn't in the middle of a big project or anything, but I was able to plan around that and take my computer on the road. Still help people by sending out emails and all that stuff that I needed to do, but I was able to take my business on the road. And that's what I mean by passive income. It's just a way that musicians, in this ever-changing world, the music economy, it's not the same, right? I mean, record sales aren't the same. The teaching students, it's competitive. There's only so many students you can teach, right? This is important stuff to me. Is teaching musicians how to do this, of how to market themselves, of how to build a business around them, and teaching music to other people, and how they can use the internet and, of course, different mediums to reach a larger audience, to help more people. And so that's something I'm really passionate about. And in the podcast, I go over lots of stuff like how to build a mailing list, like how to create ebooks from scratch, how to create music courses from scratch, how to create really great content, how to create great teaching content that helps your music students, how to, create great emails, how to create helpful tips and topics that will help grow an audience, help grow a following, and of course, grow a business, an income for you as a musician. So if that's something you're interested in, I mean, you'll hear me talk a lot about that on my new podcast, the Passive Income Musician Podcast. So again, you go to passiveincomemusician.com if you're interested in that sort of thing, or you can find that on iTunes and other places that you listen to podcasts. We'll be coming out with episodes of that every single week, and I've actually batch recorded the first 5, so they are already out. The first 5 episodes are already out, so that should keep you busy for a while if this is a topic you are interested in. And of course, if you're still with me and you're just a hobbyist, which I know most of my audience is hobbyists, you like playing jazz for fun, you like playing music for fun, no sweat. We're coming out with another episode this week. Just wanted to make this announcement for everybody who was interested, because I would, of course, I would be doing you a disservice if you're someone who could use a podcast like this and I did not mention it to you. So that's my little bonus for today, just that announcement, just kind of breaking the ice there with this new podcast. So I can continue serving you better at passiveincomemusician.com, the Passive Income Musician Podcast. And for all the rest of you, thanks so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on the next Learn Jazz Standards podcast episode. All right, cheers.